What I want to do right now then is actually drag Scott into this and see if we can put together in like about 5-10 minutes a anthro spider mammalian limb setup using this quick sculpt workflow. So Scott, you around?
I am here.
All right. So what I'm going to start with, and this is actually the basis of all this quick sculpt workflow that I do nowadays, is a Z-sphere. So we need to be a little bit aware of Z-spheres and how they operate. But Scott, what kind of setup should I have here? I mean, in terms of the insectoid process, are we really talking about something that's weighted down and then being picked up?
Yeah, I think you could decrease the angle, but yes, I think essentially you want a femur or humerus, whatever that is, elevated a bit, even a bit above horizontal maybe, and then yeah, yeah, yep, I think that'd be fine.
Okay.
Your
And
tib,
then
fib, or your ulna, yep.
okay. And then we're still talking rib cage, heads. So it's very crocodile-esque then.
Yes.
Okay.
The only other key is you're gonna, your pelvis. You know how pelvis is already sort of opened out, so the legs face out. You're gonna want to do that enough that the leg can actually be a ball and socket and be able to move more back. And likewise on the front, you want to make sure that the shoulders allow enough forward motion, with the ones in the middle then being a very normal croc or lizard-like range of motion.
Okay. Okay. So open pelvis, open shoulder, and and then the middle set of limbs. Are we fused at the vertebrae, or?
You certainly could be. That would be just fine if you wanted to have something fused with the vertebrae coming down, or even the belt-like giant open pelvis would work fine.
Okay. All right. So whenever I'm working with quick sculpt, it's real simple armature. Okay. So we're talking about a horizontal creature, some kind of head system popping up, some kind of limb system, another kind of limb system. Okay. And I'm going to switch to move, and I'm just going to put some placements down. Alt-click there, and draw, boom, boom, boom. Move. Okay. Okay. So we're on the right path, right, Scott?
Yes.
With a tail. And then I'm going to make an important distinction here. That this next step is really important. I'm not going to use the Z-sphere mesh. Okay. If you've taken classes with some creature designers, some character guys, this is what they'll do: is they'll create a Z-sphere and they'll start to sculpt this. Okay. But this is one of the things that I've started to avoid doing, because what it forces you to do is, inside your mind, you have to contain all of these shapes without giving them an actual physical form. And that doesn't help when we're learning anatomy like we are right now, because you want to get in and learn that stuff. So I'm going to go scale, Alt-click on the linking spheres, and just scale all of this stuff down. Because what I want this to be is essentially a wire armature. Okay, there's a big difference in size here, so I'm just going to adjust that. Okay, this is just your armor or your wire armature, and I don't know. Can I adjust this a little bit? Let's say boom, boom. Let's get that tapping up. Back, tink, tink. Okay, come on, there you go. All right. We can adjust the position of all of this stuff later a little bit, but you're going to want to have it kind of locked in. You don't want too much adjustment later. So I'm just making tweaks. All right. Now we get into Quick Sculpt, and this is where I want you to be thinking in terms of how Scott dissects this. What's the rib cage look like? That's what's really important. So adaptive skin, make adaptive skin. Okay, come in there, we do that. And then now what we want to do, we've got this Z-sphere model. We're going to go insert sphere, we're going to insert the rib cage. Make sure you get rid of the multiple stuff in there. Okay, turn that AccuCurve off. Oops, turn symmetry on. Okay, try to think about rib breathers, you know, how the width is going to be distributed. Try to get the actual shape of rib cage, try to get the shape of the door, try to get as much of the distinctive shape as you can, right? And then switch over to insert sphere. Okay, pull that off. Okay, and then we just have a simple setup. So this is, there we go. And then do we want that sacral spine in there? We've got the great trochanter in there. We're going to put some sort of ischial expansion in there. Okay, so some kind of basic shapes. Whoops. And I'm always using just these simple processes. So now let's put a scapula in there. Okay, and then how do we want to do this? And Scott, what were you saying in terms of that limb, that middle limb? How would we want to attach that?
This is a case where you could either do a second scapula, or else you could do a second pelvis that's kind of like really opened up, so it's like that strap or a belt-like pelvis that would be very open in the middle.
Okay, so that's going to be a bit of a problem to represent, but we're going to open it up for the guts, is what you're saying?
Well, just give it a second, you know, horse-like scapula for this then, because that'll be a little easier.
Yeah, but it's not bad. I mean, we can come in and we can use Dynamesh to do some cool stuff. So I'm going to say group. Okay, so we keep our groups, but I'm going to go into Insert Sphere, press Alt, right? And that's going to allow me to cut a hole in. So just because I'm doing this simple doesn't mean I have to, you know, avoid doing cool stuff. Turn Dynamesh on. And there. So now I've got that opened up. And this is why you want to get familiar with how all this stuff works, right? So, sorry, Scott, is this open enough?
For the rear one, yeah. For the second one, you'd want to make it, well, as big as your gut's going to be, basically.
Okay, so Control, click, and let's scale. Well, let's just use the Move brush. I like the idea of a pelvis, the second pelvis, because I haven't done that. And so that means it needs to be wider, right?
Yeah. You know, that bottom strap can be pretty small, but definitely the hole's got to be as big as you want the guts to be going through there.
Okay. And can these kind of hook up with each other, almost like vertebrae?
They could.
just locked in there. Move brush and just move that back. And then inflate like mad, because that's the problem with Dynamesh. It's just killed those thin little Z-spheres we had in there. So we've got two pelvis. We've got our various structures we need to put in there. And now I'm just going to go in and say start to add in musculature. And you can be using matte cap red, red wax if you want. You can be using matte cap gray. Let's say, are we going to be attaching these, although this is, as though this is the elbow up here?
Yeah, that would be the elbow.
So then the scapula can just, or the tricep would be in maybe a sheet-like, or?
Yeah, I think you can kind of treat it like a normal croc version of the human anatomy you're used to, with one exception. If you look at this, the equivalent of the pectoralis for the forelimbs and the pelvic adductors, gracilis and such, are going to have to be quite well developed because, of course, they're the ones that are fighting gravity the most as you move along.
Okay, so they need to be much bigger. Whoops. And really, so do we probably need some kind of really strong sternal area in there?
You know, if you want to make it mammal-like, you can. Otherwise, if you want to make it more like everything else, you just have to move the pectoralis kind of further back to get some of that extra strength. But you can do it either way. It would be fine.
Okay. So anyways, you guys are seeing now a bit of the process and the thinking, and this is, I'm not going to get something that I'm really happy with right now, because I don't want to spend an hour and go through, and I'm just experimenting. So probably I'm going to have to go through the Valley of the Suck, I don't know. I'm going to have to go through it like 10 times and just create different variations and see how things can work out and see what I can do. But we're about 40 minutes in on ZBrush stuff, and what would be really neat is to just start to see what you guys do in the forums. So I'm going to stop this recording, cancel that, say delete, yes. Okay. And then leave it up to you guys. So any questions, anything else that you guys want to do, let me know right now. Otherwise, we'll call it a day. You're going to get access to the Module 3 of Animal Anatomy. Okay, that's several hours. It's very long. It's complicated. So what I'll probably do is open up a couple more ZBrush models for you. And then you're also going to get a little bit more ZBrush training from me going over what Scott did last week. So that would be great if you start to create your own. It could be something like what we were doing there. It could be the centaur. It could be this centaur, which is when we come in and it's a separate subtool. Yes. We change the way the scapula works, fuse it in the back, put two ribs in there, all of that. All right, time to sculpt. Thanks, Scott. I'm looking through to see if I missed anything. Yeah, sorry. Thank you. Roman's got a cool question about combining the spider with the human body, the D&D derider. Asked it twice.
I'd say well, I mean, you can outright combine them, Roman, if you want, and that's kind of going to be the topic of week 5. But otherwise, your best bet if you're making something that's based on the size of a human is probably going to be to try to recreate the spider-like abilities with, you know, the human-like vertebral response. Again, let's want to outright combine them, and we'll get into that in a couple weeks.
Cool. All right, guys. Take care of yourselves. See some cool stuff in the forum.